The late afternoon sun filtered softly through the leafy canopy of Golden Elm Park, casting dappled shadows on the walking path. The subtle scent of lavender drifted from the nearby community garden, blending with the earthy aroma of fresh-cut grass. Somewhere in the distance, a child's laughter rang out, mingling with the rhythm of sneakers against pavement. Madison Carter adjusted her wireless headphones and let herself drift away into the familiar tones of Jack Johnson's Better Together. It was the kind of day she lived for, quiet, unassuming, with just enough warmth in the air to make you forget it was already fall in Northern California. She had spent most of the week glued to her screen, wrapping up the final prototype for a user interface project she was freelancing on for a boutique finance app. Working from home had its perks, namely never needing to leave her sweats, drinking oat milk lattes on demand, and, best of all, her cat Mochi curling up beside her keyboard like a glorified paperweight. Her only real company during the day were Slack pings, Zoom meetings, and voice memos from her best friend Natalie, who was living her best married life in Denver and kept sending Madison TikToks of couples doing cheesy matching dance routines. Madison? She liked her quiet. Her life was low-key, predictable, and honestly, that was just how she wanted it. At 29, she was done with drama. All she wanted was someone kind, someone steady, someone who could be a soft place to land after a long day. She hadn't expected to meet him that afternoon. As she rounded the bend near the old oak tree, lost in melody and mild existential musings, she didn't see the golden retriever charging straight at her, tail wagging furiously, leash flapping like a kite in the wind. Whoa! Hey! Wham! Madison collided into something, or rather, someone, solid enough to feel like a brick wall. Her phone slipped from her fingers, and her headphones were yanked from her ears in the chaos. She let out a startled gasp, her feet tangled with the dog's leash as she stumbled backward and landed hard on the grass. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry!" The voice was male, warm, with a hint of panic. Madison blinked up at the source of the voice, finding herself face to face with a man crouching beside her. Tousled brown hair, hazel eyes full of apology, and a sheepish half-smile that could probably defuse a bomb. "I didn't see you. I mean, Bear ran off, and then... Are you okay?" She laughed despite herself, brushing dirt off her sweatshirt. Yeah. Just bruised pride, I think." He extended a hand to help her up, and as she took it, a jolt ran through her. Not painful, just alerting. He picked up her phone, examined it quickly. "No cracks. You're lucky. That was a pretty epic wipeout, though." She raised an eyebrow. "Epic? You sound impressed." "Only because you handled it like a pro," he replied with a wink. "I'm Nathan, by the way, and this menace," he motioned to the panting, tail-wagging retriever, now licking her ankle, "is Bear." "Madison," she said, brushing her jeans off again, "and honestly, I've had worse Mondays." They stood awkwardly for a beat. Then she noticed the frisbee in Nathan's other hand. "You out here training for Ultimate Frisbee Nationals, or just trying to tire him out?" "Bit of both. My buddies bailed on me last minute. Want to play?" She tilted her head. "I haven't touched a frisbee since 8th grade gym class, where I was publicly humiliated in front of the entire school. So, no." He laughed, the kind of laugh that made her chest warm. "Come on, I'll go easy on you." That was how it started. A spontaneous frisbee lesson turned into an impromptu hour-long conversation on everything from indie bands to weird coworker habits, from favorite road trips to why pineapple does not belong on pizza. They passionately disagreed. Nathan, it turned out, was a civil engineer, recently relocated from Portland after his firm assigned him to a highway expansion project just north of Marin County. She liked his vibe, relaxed, grounded, real. When the sun started to dip, casting burnt orange over the horizon, Nathan looked at her with a grin. "I'm starving. Want to grab something at that diner across the street? They have chili fries that are probably illegal in several states." She laughed. "Only if you know I don't share fries." "Ever." Challenge accepted. That night, under twinkling cafe lights and over baskets of greasy comfort food, Madison felt something unfamiliar settle in her chest. Not quite love, not yet, but the possibility of it, and that was almost better. As he walked her to her car, Nathan scratched the back of his neck. So, can I get your number? You know, in case I ever need an emergency frisbee partner again. She smiled, handing over her phone. You better not ghost me, frisbee guy. I won't, he promised. And he didn't. Weeks turned into months. Madison and Nathan became inseparable. He would show up at her apartment with fresh bagels and flowers from the Saturday market. She'd sneak notes into his work bag, sometimes with dumb jokes, sometimes just thinking of you. They binge-watched bad documentaries and played Mario Kart until midnight. He met her cat, Mochi, who promptly claimed his lap as territory. Nathan had a way of making her feel safe, like she could be messy, be human, be loved, even on her worst days. One Sunday morning, wrapped in blankets and the smell of cinnamon rolls, Nathan murmured into her hair, You know, I think Mom would like you. She froze. Would? He sat up, grinning nervously. I mean, she's a little intense. Ex-psych professor. Very big into, let's say, cosmic alignment. But she's loyal, protective. Protective like what? Carrying pepper spray or checking star charts before breakfast? Definitely the second one. Madison chuckled. Can't wait. But somewhere deep down, a flicker of unease stirred. Not fear. Not yet. But something. It was a crisp Saturday morning when Madison found herself anxiously adjusting the sleeves of her soft beige sweater, pacing slowly in front of the mirror. Her hair was curled in loose waves, makeup subtle but intentional, a hint of blush warming her usually pale cheeks. She wasn't one to get nervous over meeting new people, but this was different. She was about to meet Nathan's mother, Janice Reed. And from everything Nathan had said, directly or between the lines, Janice wasn't just any overbearing mother. She was a force. Relax, Nathan said from the doorway of her bedroom, holding 2 travel mugs of coffee. She's intense, yeah, but she's also curious. That's her way of connecting. Madison raised an eyebrow. Connecting? Like CIA interrogation connecting? Nathan chuckled, handing her the coffee. Not that bad. She just observes people. Like, really observes them. She used to teach psychology, so she has this habit of psychoanalyzing everyone. Great. I can't wait to be diagnosed over dinner. She'll love you, he said, kissing the top of her head. But his voice carried a tightness, a hesitation too faint for her to miss. They drove for over an hour into the hills of Mill Valley, past rows of redwoods and winding roads that led to a picture-perfect cul-de-sac where Janice lived. Her house stood tall and proud, Victorian style with white trim, a garden so well manicured it looked photoshopped. Wind chimes hung from the porch, their gentle clinking oddly rhythmic, almost unnerving. As they walked up the stone steps, Madison clutched the bottle of wine she had brought, organic, dry red from a local vineyard, and tried to steady her breath. Before Nathan could even knock, the door creaked open. Janice stood there, her posture straight, lips painted a deep plum, a floral silk blouse tucked flawlessly into cream slacks. Her eyes, pale gray, calculating, locked onto Madison with a kind of deliberate curiosity. Nathan, she said, and her voice was warm enough, but Madison could already sense the control in it. And this must be Madison. Nice to meet you, Mrs. Reed, Madison said, offering the wine. Please call me Janice, she replied smoothly, taking the bottle and barely glancing at the label before setting it down on a side table. Come in. The house smelled like sandalwood and lemon polish. Every surface gleamed. Shelves lined the living room walls, filled with books on astrology, Jungian theory, and dream interpretation. Crystals glinted in the sunlight, streaming through the arched windows. On the coffee table sat a glass orb, resting atop an embroidered velvet cushion. Is that a crystal ball? Madison asked, half joking. It is, Janice replied without humor. Inherited from my grandmother. She was a clairvoyant. Nathan shot Madison a look, half amused, half apologetic. They sat down on the antique sofa, and Madison barely sank an inch into the overly firm cushions. So, Madison, Janice began, her tone bright but eyes sharp. What exactly do you do in your freelancing? I design user interfaces, mostly for financial and health tech companies. Remote work has been really freeing, Madison answered. Janice nodded slowly, her fingers tapping the spine of a thick book beside her. Remote work, I see. And how stable is that? Financially, I mean. It's consistent, Madison said with a polite smile. I manage my own clients and contracts. A beat of silence. And your parents? What do they do? My dad runs a hardware store in Santa Cruz. My mom teaches art at a local middle school. Interesting, Janice said, though her tone suggested the opposite. And your birthday? Madison blinked. I'm sorry? Your birthday, dear, for your chart. Madison hesitated, then answered. April 14th. Aries, Janice said, almost under her breath. And Nathan, of course, is a Pisces. Mom, we've talked about this, Nathan said gently. Not everyone believes in compatibility charts. Janice ignored him, reaching for a leather-bound book with gold leafing. She flipped through it with purpose, murmuring to herself, Fiery, impulsive. Pisces is water, sensitive. It can drown or be evaporated. Not ideal. Madison tried to laugh it off. We're making it work. Janice closed the book with a decisive thud. For now. They moved to the dining room, where a roast chicken rested on a silver platter surrounded by root vegetables. The table was set with matching linens, candles already lit. A perfect tableau. They were joined by Janice's neighbor and longtime friend, Ms. Carol Whitmore, a retired librarian with an uncanny ability to listen while making you feel judged. So this is the new girlfriend, Carol said, smiling thinly. I hear you met during a dog collision. That's one way to put it, Madison replied, trying not to squirm. Carol leaned in. Are you from around here? Santa Cruz originally, Madison said. Moved to the Bay Area a few years ago for work. Carol mused, slicing her chicken. And you work in… What again? Madison explained again, her voice steady. Janice interrupted. She works from home. That's the trend now. Lots of flexibility. Madison could hear the unsaid. And so could Nathan, who reached under the table and gently squeezed her hand. After dinner, as they moved back to the living room for coffee, Janice offered Madison a seat on the armchair beside the bookshelf. The conversation shifted to politics, then to the environment, then, inevitably, children. Nathan was such a sweet boy, Janice said, sipping her espresso. Always sensitive, empathic. I just hope he finds someone who complements that energy. Mom, Nathan warned. Madison met Janice's gaze. I think your son is one of the kindest people I've ever met, and I don't take that lightly. Good, Janice said, her lips curling into a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, because kindness is fragile and easily overwhelmed. On the drive home, Madison stared out the window, silent. Nathan finally said, That went okay? She's very composed, Madison replied, and very observant. She's always been that way. She just needs time. Madison didn't respond. She wasn't angry, not yet. But a chill had settled in her chest, and no amount of heater warmth could quite shake it off. Something about Janice felt like a warning in disguise. Not hostility, no. Something more dangerous. Control wrapped in silk. A cage built with compliments. And she had a feeling she'd just scratched the surface. It had been 4 months since Madison first met Janice, and while the initial discomfort had waned slightly, it never truly left. Janice maintained a composed facade, never outright hostile, never overtly warm either. She was the kind of woman who wielded subtlety like a scalpel, slicing with precision and pretending it never happened. Madison tried to give her the benefit of the doubt, assuming Janice's condescending remarks came from a generational gap, or perhaps a protective mother's instinct. But over time, it became impossible to ignore the tension that lingered like smoke after a fire. Madison and Nathan had moved in together, an airy two-bedroom apartment on the third floor of a modest complex in Santa Rosa, close to the park where they'd first met. The space was filled with mismatched furniture they'd found at flea markets and weekend estate sales, the kind of home built slowly, intentionally. Madison worked from her sunlit corner of the living room, surrounded by houseplants and mood boards. Nathan, often out on site with construction crews, would leave notes on the fridge like, "Don't forget lunch, woman of my dreams," or "Water me," and the ficus. But for every step forward in their relationship, there was a shadow trailing them, and it had perfectly coiffed hair and a master's degree in behavioral psychology. Janice started dropping by unannounced. Sometimes she'd claim she was just in the neighborhood. Other times she'd bring over a casserole or some vintage cookware she thought Madison might finally learn to use. Madison would smile politely, even when Janice opened her cabinets uninvited or made offhand remarks like, "You know, I never understood why couples cohabitate before marriage. It dilutes the mystery." Once, Madison tried to set boundaries. "Janice, we love seeing you, but maybe just a heads up before stopping by would help us prepare." Janice tilted her head, smiling thinly. "Of course, dear. I understand the need for space. I just figured you'd be home, since you don't have to clock in anywhere." It stung more than Madison expected. Nathan, to his credit, often stepped in, gently redirecting or defending her. But over time, even he seemed to grow weary of the constant tightrope between loyalty to his mother and the woman he loved. "Babe, she's always been this way," he said one night, rubbing his temples as they lay in bed. "She nitpicks everything. My old girlfriends used to call her the General. I guess I'm just used to it." "You shouldn't be," Madison said softly, trying not to sound accusatory. "She's not just nitpicking. She's planting seeds, trying to make me feel like I don't belong." Nathan sighed. "I'll talk to her." But he didn't. Or if he did, it didn't make a difference. The breaking point came during Thanksgiving. They'd invited a small group of friends, Nathan's best friend Eli and his wife Jasmine, Madison's co-worker turned confidant Rachel, and Rachel's fiancé Theo. Everyone had brought a dish. The apartment smelled like roasted garlic, pumpkin pie, and mulled wine. Laughter bounced off the walls as Bear, now a permanent fixture in their lives, trotted around in a turkey costume. It was going well, until Janice arrived. She was an hour late, wearing a beige trench coat and holding a bottle of Bordeaux like a weapon. Her eyes scanned the room, calculating. "Well," she said, "this is festive." As introductions were made, Janice took a seat beside Rachel and immediately launched into a dissection of freelance culture, raising questions like, "Do you think it's sustainable?" and "Doesn't it get lonely working from home all day?" Madison laughed politely, sipping her wine, but her knuckles whitened around the glass. During dinner, Janice turned to Nathan. "Remember the Claremont girls? Jessica? Sophie? They were always so put together." Nathan cleared his throat. "Mom!" "What?" Janice replied innocently. "I'm just saying, those girls had direction." Madison put down her fork. "I have direction, Janice," she said evenly. "It just doesn't come with a corporate badge or a pantsuit." Silence followed. Janice smiled. "Of course, dear. I just hope it leads somewhere." After dessert, as guests trickled out, Madison found herself alone on the balcony, sipping what was left of her wine. Rachel joined her, arms crossed against the cold. "She's exhausting," Rachel said quietly. Madison exhaled. "She's dangerous." Later that night, Madison sat at her desk and opened her journal. She wrote, "I feel like I'm being tested. Not in an obvious head-on collision kind of way, but more like walking through a minefield where the explosions are psychological. She doesn't yell, she doesn't threaten, but she rewrites reality, subtly, consistently. And the worst part? I think she wants me to fail. Over the next few weeks, the emotional erosion continued. Janice made comments to Nathan when Madison wasn't around, about the clutter in the apartment, about how he looked tired lately, about whether he ever missed Portland and the quiet women he used to date. When Madison confronted him, he admitted, she worries. It's her way. I'm not sure I can do this, Madison whispered one night. Not if she keeps getting in between us. She's not trying to get between us, he said. She just doesn't know how to let go. But that was the problem. Janice didn't want to let go. She wanted control. And slowly, Madison began to feel herself shrinking. She started second-guessing her outfits when she knew Janice might stop by. She found herself hesitating before speaking her mind, worried it might be used against her later. She worked longer hours just to avoid dinner conversations. She became quieter, more reserved, like her colors were being dulled, one shade at a time. The only solace she found was in Rachel's company and occasional FaceTime calls with her mom back in Santa Cruz. Her mother, sensing something wasn't right, finally asked, "Sweetheart, are you happy?" Madison paused. "I'm trying to be." Then, one morning, the test came. Janice had invited them to brunch at her house. Nathan was delayed at work, so Madison arrived first, bringing homemade blueberry scones. Janice greeted her with the usual gracious smile. "You look pale, Madison. Are you sleeping well?" "Just a long week," she replied. As Janice brewed coffee, she motioned for Madison to sit at the kitchen island. "I've been thinking," she began. "You and Nathan seem very different." "How so?" "Well," Janice said, pouring 2 cups, "you're spontaneous, creative. He's structured, methodical. I just wonder if those differences will wear on you." "They haven't yet." "But you've only known each other a year. People don't reveal their true selves until at least 3. Is that psychology speaking, or personal experience?" Janice's eyes twitched. "Both." Madison took a sip. The coffee was bitter. "Listen, Janice," she said carefully. "I respect that you care about Nathan. I do too. Deeply. But I need to know we're not in some silent competition for his loyalty." Janice set her cup down slowly. "Dear," she said, tone cool, "I don't compete. I protect." Later, when Nathan finally arrived and noticed Madison's tight smile and glassy eyes, he asked, "Did something happen?" Madison hesitated. "She's testing me," she said. "I don't know how much longer I can keep passing." As they drove home, Madison looked out the window and whispered to herself, "I won't let her turn me into someone I'm not." But even then, she wasn't sure how long she could stay whole. It started with a feeling, subtle at first, like the quiet buzz of static in the back of your mind. Madison brushed it off for weeks, chalked it up to stress, or maybe the effects of too much caffeine and too little sleep. But there was something off. Something watching. It began on a Tuesday afternoon. She was coming out of the local Trader Joe's, arms loaded with groceries, when she felt it, eyes on her back. She turned around casually, pretending to adjust her keys. Across the parking lot, a man stood near a black sedan, wearing a ball cap and oversized sunglasses. Nothing about him screamed suspicious, but something about his posture felt wrong. Too still, too focused. Madison stared at him for a few seconds too long, and he quickly turned and walked away. Her stomach churned. Maybe it was nothing. A coincidence. She didn't even mention it to Nathan when he came home that night, preoccupied with a delay in a highway bridge project he was managing in Napa. But 2 days later, she saw the same man again, this time at the local cafe, where she sometimes worked during the day. He was at a table near the window, newspaper in hand, but she could feel his eyes peeking over the edge every few minutes. Her chest tightened. "Okay, not nothing." "Rachel, I need to talk to you." She whispered urgently over the phone later that day. I think someone's following me. What? Like, actually following you? Rachel asked, her voice immediately serious. Yes. Twice now. Same guy. I saw him at the grocery store and today at the cafe. He pretends not to look at me, but he's not subtle. Have you told Nathan? Not yet. I don't want to sound paranoid unless I'm sure. Mahdi, even if you're only half sure, that's enough. Do not mess around with this. I know. I don't want to make a big deal unless it really is one. Stalkers don't usually RSVP, babe. Rachel wasn't joking. By the third time she saw him, standing across the street from her apartment, her fear crystallized into cold, hard certainty. He wasn't just randomly showing up. He was following her, watching her, waiting. That night, she told Nathan everything. He looked alarmed, but tried to stay calm. Okay, he said slowly, rubbing the back of his neck. Let's not jump to conclusions. Maybe it's a misunderstanding. But if it happens again, we need to get license plates. Maybe even go to the police. Sawyer, you don't think I'm crazy? No, he said firmly, pulling her into a hug. I think someone's messing with the wrong woman. But that reassurance didn't last long. A few days later, Madison decided to go to the same Trader Joe's at the same time. This time, deliberately. She needed to know if he'd appear again. And he did. Same ball cap, same glasses, same cold, focused posture. This time, she didn't ignore it. She pulled out her phone and snapped a picture. The sound made him look up, startled. She took a few steps toward him. Hey, she shouted. Why are you following me? His eyes widened. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't play dumb. I've seen you at least 3 times now. You think I wouldn't notice? She lifted her phone again. Smile for the police. That got him. He turned to bolt, but she was faster, stepping into his path. I'll scream, she said, her voice shaking but loud. You want a crowd? Because I'll get one. He held up his hands. Look, I'm not trying to hurt you. I was hired, okay? I'm a private investigator. She blinked. What? I was hired to observe, not hurt, just observe. By who? She demanded. I can't say. I'm under contract. She snapped another picture. Then you can explain it to the police. That night, in the parking lot of their building, Nathan confronted the man. Madison stood a few feet behind him, arms crossed, adrenaline still humming in her veins. You're gonna tell me who hired you, Nathan growled, fists clenched. I can't. Nathan stepped closer. You can, or we go to the cops. Your choice. The man swallowed hard. It was your mother. Time stopped. Madison felt the air leave her lungs. Nathan stood frozen. What? She wanted proof, the man mumbled. Proof of infidelity, or that the pregnancy was fake. But I didn't find anything. There's nothing to find. Nathan's voice was hoarse. Because she's not lying. The man looked apologetic. I'm just doing my job. Nathan stepped back. Get out of here, and if I ever see you near her again, I'll press charges. The PI didn't argue. He disappeared into the night. They went upstairs in silence. Madison sat on the edge of the couch, still gripping her phone. Nathan paced. Finally, he stopped. She hired someone to follow you. Yes? She thinks you're cheating. Yes. She thinks you're lying about being pregnant. Madison nodded slowly. Nathan rubbed his eyes. Jesus Christ! I'm sorry, she whispered. He looked at her, pained. Don't apologize. She did this. Not you. The next morning, Nathan called Janice. Madison sat beside him, clutching a mug of tea she couldn't bring herself to drink. You had someone follow Madison? He said without preamble. What the hell, Mom? There was silence on the other end. Then Janice's voice, calm as ever. I had to be sure. Sure of what? That she's trustworthy? That she's not tricking me into something? What kind of mother does that? I'm protecting you, Janice said. You're too close to see clearly. Nathan's voice broke. No, You're too far gone to see I love her. Love clouds judgment. And obsession ruins families, he snapped. That evening, Nathan installed a full security system: cameras, alarms, motion sensors. Madison watched him from the hallway, half grateful, half heartbroken. She didn't want to live like this. But what choice did they have? Rachel came over that night with wine and junk food. "This is nuts," she said, pouring glasses. "Your future mother-in-law is certifiable." "I don't know what she thinks she's proving," Madison murmured. "That she's still in control," Rachel said. "She's losing her grip on Nathan, so she's targeting the thing he loves most. You." Madison stared into her wine. "She's not going to stop, is she?" "No," Rachel said. "Not unless she's forced to." For the first time, Madison felt something shift inside her. Not fear, but resolve. She had tried to be kind, patient, tolerant, but Janice had crossed a line, and if she wanted a war, Madison would fight with everything she had. Later that night, Nathan wrapped his arms around her. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "It's not your fault," she said, "but we have to make some hard decisions." He nodded. "Like what?" "Like boundaries. Real ones. Enforced ones. Or we're not going to survive this." And for the first time, Nathan didn't hesitate. "Okay," he said. "Let's draw the line." But neither of them could have predicted how far Janice would go to cross it. The days following the confrontation with the private investigator had been quiet. Eerily so. Madison almost believed, foolishly, that things might settle. That maybe Janice, now exposed, would retreat. That she had finally exhausted whatever twisted crusade she was on. But the silence was deceptive. A calm that wrapped itself around them, like a blanket pulled tight, warm on the surface, suffocating underneath. Madison was 7 months pregnant now. Her belly had finally rounded enough to show unmistakably a physical truth that no amount of doubt or denial could refute. The baby kicked more at night. Madison often woke to gentle nudges from within, feeling like the child was trying to remind her, "I'm here. I'm real. I'm yours." She and Nathan had kept the pregnancy secret for as long as they could. After everything with Janice, after the investigator, the phone calls, the lies, they had agreed to protect their little bubble of peace. Only Madison's parents, John and Linda, knew. They had cried tears of joy over Zoom when Madison told them, both beaming with pride from their cozy home in Santa Cruz. "You'll be wonderful parents," her mother had whispered. "You already are." But 7 months in, secrets become difficult to hide. And Madison, with her glow and undeniable bump, knew it was time. Time to stop hiding. Time to celebrate. "Let's do it here," Nathan said one morning, his hand resting gently on her stomach. "Backyard's big enough. We can decorate, keep it small. Just friends, some family, food, music. No speeches, no stress." She smiled. "You think we can have a drama-free party with your mom present?" Nathan hesitated. "We don't invite her. Or we do, but we don't let her run it. Are we ready for that?" "I think it's time we stopped living in fear of what she might do." Madison exhaled slowly, then nodded. "Okay, let's do it." They spent the week planning. Jasmine and Eli came over to help string up fairy lights and hang yellow and white paper lanterns across the fence. Rachel took charge of catering, ordering an assortment of wood-fired pizzas and vegan cupcakes from her friend's bakery downtown. Madison's mom mailed over a quilt she'd been stitching in secret, a patchwork of soft colors and tiny stars. "It's for the nursery," the note said, "to remind the baby that they are already loved beyond words." On the day of the party, the backyard glowed. Sunlight filtered through the oak trees. Tables were draped in light linen, small vases of daisies and lavender dotting the center. A soft playlist of acoustic covers hummed in the background. Madison wore a pale blue wrap dress that hugged her belly, and for the first time in months, she allowed herself to feel beautiful. People trickled in, friends from Nathan's firm, a few of Madison's colleagues, Rachel and Theo, Jasmine and Eli, even their quirky upstairs neighbor, Paul, who brought a bottle of sparkling cider and a hand-carved wooden rattle. Laughter drifted through the yard. Bear trotted around in a tiny bandana that said, "Big Brother." Then Janice arrived. She was 30 minutes late, as always. Dressed in a tailored lavender suit, her hair pulled into a tight bun, lips painted in her signature wine red. She moved through the gate like she owned the place, ignoring the buzz of conversation around her. She walked straight toward Madison and Nathan, her heels crunching softly on the stone path. Madison felt her pulse quicken, but she kept her shoulders back. Janice's eyes dropped to Madison's belly. "You're actually going through with it," she said, voice low. Madison blinked. "Excuse me?" "This performance," Janice said, motioning around. "The dress, the decorations, the grand announcement. It's all very elaborate." Nathan stepped between them. "Mom, don't!" But Janice didn't stop. Her voice rose, sharp and slicing. "She's not pregnant. Don't you all see that? This is a trap, a show. She's manipulating all of you." The yard fell silent. Conversations died mid-sentence. Heads turned. Madison felt her breath catch. A deep, ancient instinct told her to flee. But she didn't move. Not this time. "I'm sorry," she said clearly. "Would you like to repeat that for everyone?" Janice's eyes narrowed. "This is a scam. You're pretending to be pregnant to trap my son, to take his money, to—" Nathan raised his voice. "Stop it." Janice ignored him. "She's a fraud. And you're all playing into it like fools." Madison walked forward, her hands protectively cradling her belly. "I'm pregnant, Janice," she said, "with your grandchild. And nothing you say, no stunt you pull, will make that untrue." Janice gave a hollow laugh. "I've seen women fake it better. You probably found one of those foam bellies online. What's next? Borrowing someone's baby for the photos?" The silence was so heavy, Madison could hear her own heartbeat. Around her, guests stood frozen, unsure whether to leave or intervene. "Enough," Nathan said. "You need to leave, right now." Janice looked at him, stunned. "You're choosing her over your own mother?" "I'm choosing the truth," he said, "and the woman I love." Madison's voice was steady now. "You don't have to like me, Janice, but you will respect me, or you won't be in our lives." Janice stared at her, jaw tight. Then she turned and walked into the house without another word. Madison exhaled slowly. Rachel rushed over. "That was... wow. Are you okay?" Madison nodded. "No, but I will be." The party continued in a strange hush. People tried to recover, making awkward jokes, starting small talk. Nathan tried to smile, but Madison could see the weight behind his eyes. When the sun began to dip and guests said their goodbyes, Madison found herself alone in the kitchen, watching Bear sleep beside the fridge. Then she heard footsteps on the stairs. "Janice." Madison stepped into the hallway, heart pounding. "What are you doing?" Janice stood at the top of the stairs, eyes blazing. "You think this is over? You think I'll let you destroy him?" "I haven't destroyed anything," Madison said. "You're the one lighting matches." "I won't let you poison him," Janice hissed. "You'll slip, you'll make a mistake, and I'll be waiting." Madison felt her hands shake, but she held her ground. "You don't scare me anymore." Janice took a step forward. "You should be scared. You're living a lie, and lies always come crashing down." And then she moved. Too fast, too sudden. A shove. A gasp. Madison's foot missed the top step. The world tilted. And then, falling. Her scream was swallowed by the walls. The sound of her body hitting the stairs echoed like gunshots. The last thing she heard before the darkness was Nathan shouting her name. White. That was the first thing Madison registered when consciousness crept back in. Blinding white, ceiling tiles overhead, fluorescent lights humming softly, and the sterile smell of antiseptic laced with something sharper. Her entire body ached, like every muscle had been pulled tight, then dropped. Her throat burned. Her mouth was dry. But none of that mattered. not when her hand instinctively moved to her belly. It wasn't there. She gasped, a sharp inhale that triggered a flurry of beeps from the monitors beside her. Panic surged like a wave. Her eyes flew open, wild, searching. Where's... where's my baby? Her voice cracked, barely audible. A figure leaned into view. Nathan. His face was drawn, eyes ringed with shadows, hair a mess. Madison, he breathed, gripping her hand as though she might vanish again. You're awake. Oh my God, you're awake. Where is he? She repeated, her voice rising. Is the baby? Nathan, where is he? Nathan's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Then, a quiet voice from the corner. He's here. He's alive. But he's in the NICU. It was a nurse, tall, dark-skinned, with kind eyes and a calm presence. Her badge read, Nina, RN. You had to deliver early, Madison, after the fall. Your baby boy, he's small, but he's fighting. He's a strong one. Madison's tears came in a rush. Relief, fear, guilt, all tangled together. She turned back to Nathan. Did I lose him? Is he hurt because of me? No, no, Nathan said quickly, brushing the hair from her face. He's okay. He's on oxygen, but the doctors say he's stable. They're monitoring everything. He's in good hands. What happened? She whispered. The stairs. The memory came crashing back. Janice, the hallway, the shove, her scream, the darkness. She pushed me, Madison said, eyes wide. She pushed me. Nathan's expression hardened. He closed his eyes, as if fighting something inside himself. I didn't want to believe it, he said. I thought, maybe it was an accident, maybe you slipped, but I checked the security footage. Madison froze. You saw it? He nodded slowly. I saw everything. His voice trembled, not with uncertainty, but rage. She shoved you. You turned to walk away, and she raised her hand and pushed you down the stairs. He looked sick. I called the police. Madison swallowed hard. What did they say? They've already brought her in for questioning. They have the footage. They've charged her with felony assault and endangering a child. Madison closed her eyes. She could have killed him. She could have killed you, Nathan said, voice breaking. I almost lost both of you. Over the next few days, Madison remained in the hospital under close observation. Her body had taken a brutal toll, bruised ribs, a fractured wrist, and the emotional trauma that settled like lead in her chest. But every day she made her way, slowly, carefully, to the NICU. There, behind the clear plastic of a temperature-controlled incubator, lay her son. Tiny, fragile, but real. His name was Liam. The first time she touched his hand, his fingers curled instinctively around hers, and she sobbed so quietly the nurse beside her had to turn away. Nathan never left her side. He sat beside her bed at night, curled up in the visitor's chair, one hand always within reach. They didn't talk much those first few days. There weren't words big enough for what they'd been through. But the silence wasn't empty. It was full of shared grief, anger, love, and something unspoken but understood. They were still standing, and so was Liam. A week after the incident, Madison was visited by Detective Harris, a woman in her late 40s, with a no-nonsense air and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She arrived with a file in hand and compassion in her voice. We've reviewed the footage, she said, sitting beside Madison. There's no ambiguity. This wasn't an accident. Your mother-in-law deliberately pushed you. Madison nodded slowly. She said I was poisoning him, that I was manipulating Nathan. We've seen that behavior before, Harris said. It's rare, but not unheard of. Control taken to the extreme. She had convinced herself that you were a threat, and she acted accordingly. Madison's voice was a whisper. She could have killed my baby. Harris nodded. Which is why the DA is pursuing full charges. Given the evidence, she's likely to face trial. And from what I understand, she hasn't shown any remorse. Of course she hasn't, Madison muttered. She thinks she's right. Later that night, Nathan returned from the lawyer's office with news. She's trying to claim it was a mental break, he said. That she wasn't in her right mind. Temporary psychosis. Do you think that's true? I think she's a narcissist who can't handle losing control, he said. And now she's playing the only card she has left. Madison stared at the ceiling. I want her to face what she did. Not just legally. I want her to know she failed. That she didn't break us. Nathan looked at her, eyes softening. She didn't. She won't. Liam continued to grow stronger. After 2 weeks, he was breathing on his own. After 3, he opened his eyes, and Madison swore he looked right at her. After a month, he was cleared to go home. The day they brought him back to the apartment, Madison stood in the nursery they had barely finished. The yellow walls caught the morning light, and the little crib looked like a promise fulfilled. She held Liam close, rocking gently, whispering words only he could hear. "You're safe now. We're safe." The trial date was set for 6 months later. In the meantime, Janice was denied contact, denied bail. Nathan's attorney moved quickly to issue a restraining order that would hold even after sentencing. "She won't come near us again," Nathan promised. "Ever." In court, Janice sat stone-faced, lips pressed into a tight line, her lavender suit replaced by a beige prison uniform. She tried to spin the narrative, said she slipped, said Madison was unstable, said everyone was out to get her. But the footage didn't lie. The judge didn't waver. She was found guilty on all counts, sentenced to 3 years in prison, required to pay restitution. Her house was seized and sold to cover medical expenses and Liam's long-term care. As Madison watched the gavel fall, she felt nothing. No satisfaction, no vindication. Just relief. The storm was over. For now. Outside the courthouse, Rachel met them on the steps. She hugged Madison tightly. "You did it. You survived her." Madison smiled faintly. "Barely." Nathan wrapped his arm around both of them. "But we did." Weeks turned into months. Liam grew, learned to smile, learned to coo, learned to wrap his tiny fingers around Madison's hair, and tug with surprising strength. Madison wrote again. Essays, blogs, small pieces about motherhood and trauma and healing. Her following online grew, not because she sensationalized her pain, but because she wrote with raw, unflinching truth. In the final entry of the journal she had kept since the beginning of it all, Madison wrote, "She tried to make me disappear, tried to erase me, my truth, my voice, my worth. But I'm still here, and every breath my son takes is proof that no amount of hatred can silence love." The morning sun crept gently through the nursery window, casting golden light across the yellow walls. It danced along the edges of the pale blue curtains, warming the soft animal prints on the walls and flickering over the hand-stitched quilt Madison's mother had sent months earlier, the one covered in stars. Liam was asleep in Madison's arms, his breath soft and rhythmic against her chest. He was bigger now, his skin plump with health, eyes more alert every day. His tiny fingers curled instinctively around hers, even in sleep. She closed her eyes, resting her cheek against his head, breathing him in. This was peace. This was what it felt like. 3 months had passed since the trial ended, since Janice had been led away in handcuffs, her expression finally cracking under the weight of her own actions. She hadn't spoken a word in court after the verdict. She had simply stood, rigid, as the sentence was read. Madison hadn't watched her being taken away. She'd kept her eyes on Liam, asleep in Nathan's arms in the gallery, his small face untouched by the chaos around him. That was the last time Janice would ever be a part of their story. That door had closed, and Madison wasn't looking back. Life moved forward slowly, like thaw after a long winter. There were quiet days filled with walks in the park and late-night feedings, moments where Madison and Nathan simply sat on the couch holding hands while Bear snored at their feet. There were also hard days, when the trauma snuck up on her in flashes, when the sound of a door slamming too hard made her flinch, when the sight of a lavender blouse on a stranger's shoulder made her stomach drop. Healing, she'd learned, wasn't linear. It was messy, imperfect, but real. She joined a support group for women who had survived family violence. Not the headline kind, but the subtle, emotional warfare that destroys from the inside. The group met every Thursday at a small community center. The first time Madison went, she barely spoke. But the women, Sarah, who had been ostracized by her husband's family for leaving a controlling marriage, Elise, who had fought to keep custody of her kids after her in-laws spread lies, and Beth, who had once been forced into a psychiatric hold after her mother-in-law manipulated her doctor, they all nodded like they knew. Because they did. Over time, Madison shared more. She didn't scream or hit. She smiled while she undermined me, made me question myself, and when that didn't work, she tried to erase me, physically. But I'm still here. We're still here. Nathan, too, changed. There was a quiet protectiveness in him now, a deeper presence. He had always been loving, but now he was intentional, more aware of his mother's manipulations, more fierce in defending their boundaries. He started therapy too, something Madison hadn't expected but deeply appreciated. I didn't realize how much I excused, he told her one night, rocking Liam to sleep. How much I justified. I thought protecting her was loyalty. But loyalty to abuse isn't noble. It's dangerous. Their relationship grew stronger in the aftermath, not because the pain had made them closer, but because they chose to face it together. Madison no longer feared bringing up hard topics. Nathan no longer hesitated to speak the truth. They had built something resilient, not perfect, but rooted in honesty. One afternoon, as Madison watched Liam babble at his reflection in a floor mirror, she felt a thought rise, unbidden. What if he asks about her one day, about Janice, about what happened, about the scar that still faintly marked the side of Madison's forehead? She didn't know exactly what she'd say, but she knew it would be the truth. She would tell him about strength, about boundaries, about the difference between family and obligation, and about how love, real love, never asks you to shrink. Rachel visited often, bringing new baby books and ridiculous onesies that said things like future CEO and no naps, no negotiations. She was the kind of friend who always showed up, even when Madison didn't ask. "You're killing it, Mama," she said one evening, watching Madison expertly juggle feeding Liam and texting a client on her laptop. "Seriously, you're like Superwoman with a laptop and a diaper bag," Madison laughed. "More like Superwoman with spit up on her shirt and 3 hours of sleep." They toasted sparkling cider on the porch that night, watching the sun dip below the horizon. "Do you ever think about leaving this place?" Rachel asked. "Like, starting totally fresh?" Madison thought for a moment. "I used to. But now, I don't think I'm running anymore. This isn't a place I need to escape. It's a place I rebuilt." So, summer came, and with it, warmth that wasn't just in the air. Liam started crawling, then babbling with enthusiasm, especially when Bear trotted past. The apartment that had once held so much tension now echoed with laughter, music, and the soft clinks of bottles warming on the stove. Madison began writing again, really writing. Her blog, which had started as a journal for herself, now had thousands of readers. She wrote essays on motherhood, mental health, boundaries, healing. People resonated. Women from across the country wrote to her, saying things like, "You made me feel seen," or "I thought I was the only one." One message stood out. It was from a woman in Oregon. Her daughter-in-law had filed a restraining order against her. The woman was angry, defensive, but at the end she wrote, "Reading your story made me wonder if I crossed a line. I didn't see it until now. I'm trying to make it right." Madison stared at the message for a long time. She didn't reply, but she smiled. One day, while sorting through old boxes in the closet, she found the ultrasound photos she'd hidden during her pregnancy. She hadn't wanted Janice to see them, hadn't trusted that something so intimate would be safe in her hands. She held them now, tracing the faint outline of Liam's tiny form, remembering the fear, the hope, the way her heart had stretched to make room for someone she hadn't even met yet. Nathan came in behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "What's that?" She showed him. He kissed the top of her head. "We made it." "Yeah," she said. "We did." That night, as they sat outside under the string lights Rachel had helped them put up months ago, Bear sprawled at their feet and Liam asleep in the bassinet beside them, Madison looked up at the stars. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like she was waiting for the next storm. The wind rustled gently through the trees. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. The world didn't feel dangerous anymore. It felt open, full of possibility. Madison leaned her head on Nathan's shoulder. "Do you regret any of it?" she asked quietly. He was silent for a moment. Then he said, "I regret letting it go on for so long. I regret not protecting you sooner. But I don't regret us. I don't regret Liam. I don't regret where we are now." She nodded, tears stinging her eyes. "I used to think survival was the goal," she said, "but it's not. Peace is. And I think we finally found it. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss another emotional journey. We share real, raw, and deeply moving stories that remind us what it means to love, to fight, and to heal. Every week brings a new voice, a new lesson, and a chance to see the world through someone else's eyes. Join our growing community of listeners who believe in the power of storytelling. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.